Good evening. Events this week leave a little doubt in the minds of the people of our town that this council is dirty, it is diseased, it is corrupt, and it is an institution that has hidden child abusers from the members of our town. Politicians from all sides have remained silent, and the secret is now out. Is there any trust left in this town? Can Jim McMahon be trusted? Notice his silence. Can Debbie Abrams be trusted? Notice her silence. Can Angela Rayner be trusted? Now that woman's got a mouth, but she also has remained silent. And meanwhile, thanks to Brian Hoban and his brave stance last week, it has all fallen apart for all of them as they all run for cover. I've got things for you today, and it's going to be explosive.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. Harood Shah, Abdul Jabbar, Sean Fielding, Shisha Bars, Riaz Ahmed, Buying Sweets, Chohan and Mushtaq, Land on the Cheap, Dr. Carolyn Wilkins, Under Attack, Another No Comment, Shabir Ahmed, Glodic Baths, Debbie Kashmir, On the Run, Don't Dare Complain, They'll Call You a Racist Son. The cartels control the postal votes and the paedophiles run free. Welcome to Oldham, home to corrupt councillors and their childhood criminal friends. And in control of it all, at the top of the tree, Jim McMahon, the samosa nibbling MP. Still silent on how he used the funeral of the butchered soldier, Lee Rigby. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. Cartel Town. Grooming gangs, postal vote fraud, paedophile protectors, still barefaced lies. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Brian Hoban joined me last week, and because of him, this is what's happened. First of all, the Tories came out, played some games maybe, did some good, who knows, we'll yet to find out. Howard Sykes came out, killed his career as far as I'm concerned. Howard Sykes, your career's over. I'm going to go and knock on every door I can in Shaw with whoever stands against you on an anti-paedophile platform. Because you, in your statement, took the people of this town for fools. And then, as night follows day, Sean Fielding issued a statement. He couldn't even bring himself to admit what had happened in his statement. All those words. But let's go back. They're all denying it now, yeah? We didn't know him, we didn't know any of this. This is from May 2018.
I think it's important to record that Rob Blythe worked hard for the people of Shaw. He spoke up for his constituents on issues that mattered to them and mattered to his colleagues, for example, on crime and antisocial behaviour in our town centre, against the administration's plans to close our local swimming baths and tip, and most recently against the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework proposals to build 3,000 new houses on the green belt surrounding Shaw and Crompton. And I'd just like to say, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity, on behalf of the many people whose lives he helped and his support as a colleague and a friend, a very sincere and big thank you.
Howard Sykes' eulogy to Rod Blythe. We now know what Rod Blythe did. There is no doubt anymore, because even the council sponsored Charlotte Green in the Oldham Chronicle, on Revolution Radio's news page, in the Manchester Evening News, on all of these channels. She's had to come out and try and spin it. So let's have a look at a series of photographs. But I think I need to start with Brian. I can't say enough good things about this man, because otherwise it was me sharing a space, admittedly with thousands of us, but we're just thousands of ordinary people. Brian is an elected politician, and he risked his entire political career last week. Here you go, to Carolyn Wilkins, who hasn't given him the decency of a reply yet. I spoke to Brian earlier. Not even the decency of a reply. Our town has exposed a convicted sex offender, counsellor, and they hid it from us. And Dr. Carolyn Wilkins, the town's chief executive, on £200,000 a year, is away, working somewhere else seconded, hasn't the decency to come back and reassure the people of our town that there is not an organised paedophile ring operating in this town. And sorry to all of those people who have contacted me. I am really, really sorry. I cannot give you that reassurance. All I can share with you are the questions and the information that I have. And that is repeatedly, this town, those that lead this town, have hidden those who have committed sexual offences against children. At some point, we have to ask ourselves why they are doing this. This is what Brian sent. And he triggered a sequence. This was the first of the headlines. I'll just zoom out of here so you can see it a bit better. The former councillor convicted of making indecent images was Charlotte Green's headline. Charlotte, you're a shameful, shameful lady, aren't you? He wasn't making indecent images, Charlotte. There were indecent images against children. We have a word for that in Oldham, Charlotte. We call it child abuse. I'm sure they call it child abuse in other parts of the country as well. Child abuse. Yes, I've got this working again, so I can put up comments. Brilliant, so that's been fixed. Yeah, child abuse. Thank you, Rocky. They're not indecent images. And they all went with this line. All of them went with this line. Indecent images. No. And when Charlotte got caught out and they realised that the people of our town weren't taking this nonsense, in the MEN, she went with something else. Oh, it's okay, Charlotte. He didn't use the council computer to download them. My information actually is he did. But if your information is he didn't, well, that makes it quite all right, doesn't it? And he wasn't a former councillor, Charlotte, no matter what you and all the others keep saying. He was not a former councillor. When he committed his crimes, he was a serving councillor. Yes, Denise. Child A, Class A, child abuse images, Class A, B and C. Now, at some point, you have to either accept I'm telling the truth and what I've released is true, or you accept their weasel words where they're trying to maneuver themselves out of it. I released this several weeks ago. I was 100% of my sources, and if I'd got it wrong, the likelihood was I'd be sued and I'd probably be put in prison. But yeah, here I am, and these people have been forced to react because we were outraged. And now she's saying, oh, it's okay. He didn't use his council computer to download them. You dirty woman. Unbelievable. This is what she looks like. If anyone sees her in Oldham, because she comes up on the tram from Chorlton or Didsbury or wherever she lives, if anyone sees her in our town with a microphone looking for comments, please do give her a comment. Be polite. I don't want any violence or anything towards anyone, and I definitely would not want, advocate anything like that. But people like this need to be told, because they are meant to be the voices of our communities. This is the independent press. Hi, Sarah. Yeah, he was. We have prisons for people like him, but he didn't go to prison, did he? Rocky got this, actually. I can see her on. Sorry, Rocky, I deleted your email address and stuff in case anyone wants to get in touch with you. But yeah, we had a conversation, and there you go. The court clerk at Manchester Munchell Street. And that's his sentences. You'll see it matches exactly what I released a couple of weeks ago. And they kept it from us. They kept it from us. Sean Fielding, Howard Sykes, Dr. Carolyn Wilkins, they kept it from us. And sorry, I'm going to have to do this again. Because someone found this for me. They spent hours and hours looking for this, but I'm going to play this again.
I think it's important to record that Rob Blythe worked hard for the people of Shaw. He spoke up for his constituents on issues that mattered to them and mattered to his colleagues, for example, on crime and antisocial behaviour in our town centre, against the administration's plans to close our local swimming baths and tip, and most recently against the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework proposals to build 3,000 new houses on the green belt surrounding Shaw and Crompton. And I'd just like to say, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity, on behalf of the many people whose lives he helped and his support as a colleague and a friend, a very sincere and big thank you.
A sincere and big thank you. I'll get to what Howard knew and didn't know in a bit, along with all the others. But here we are. These are the letters. You've all seen them by now. Sean Fielding's, and don't worry, I'm whizzing through them because I've got something else I want to show you. I'm whizzing through these letters. There you go. That's his letter that he sent out to the Tories. Howard Sykes' statement. Garbage. Ends his political career, as far as I'm concerned, because he was being evasive. And then, of course, the Tories. Who fair dues, stuck their neck out. But I'm trying to work out what they're going to do next. Okay, so this should give us some context as to what's took place and why this happened. Remember, he was convicted. He pleaded guilty. He'd pleaded guilty earlier in the year, about May time. He'd pleaded guilty. So when I first started doing my when I first started with the information I started releasing, it was about May last year. That's when he pleaded guilty. They would have known. The council was his employer when he committed the crimes. The council laptop was took off him, or his employer's laptop was took off him. He resigned. He didn't just resign. And I have no issue with Rod Blythe, apart from the fact that he's a sex offender. There's nothing personal with him. I've never met him. My issue isn't him. My issue is the system that covered it up. And on the 6th of November, when Sean Fielding led out of the town hall, of the council chamber in the town hall, his entire council, he looked towards Howard, they exchanged glances, Howard got up, and all of his councillors followed, and the Tories followed after that. The reason I believe why that took place was because Sean Fielding and Dr. Carolyn Wilkins, Paul Entwistle, the lawyer, all of them knew about Rod Blythe, and they were willing to keep the Lib Dems' dirty little secret as long as the Lib Dems marched out of the council chamber and kept the Labour Party's dirty little secret of Shabir Ahmed, his employment at Oldham Council, his allegiances and membership of the Labour Party, and the grooming gangs that are in bed with the cartels. As a consequence, they have got away with it because of the block vote that's delivered. That's what all this murkiness is about. And Sean Fielding would have known that when he marched out of the council chamber, refusing to answer a simple question. They're finished. These people are finished. Here.
My question is, can the council please tell the residents of Oldham why an independent investigation into the historic grooming has not been sorted out and is now used?
Cover up. Cover up? Covering up child abuse. How disgraceful is that?
I don't know how you do. Don't look at it.
It has been reported to our MP Debbie Abrams that I, a member of the public, don't want to read on social media the sanction of a murder. I don't want to read it.
You're heading shame, lady.
Lewis. As he replied, this is a gentleman that asked for councillor Sykes to get back to
5 minutes.
4 times.
This is all the cover up, isn't it?
To all the members of the public, we've got lies, deceit.
There you go. Look at them run. Look at them run. Dean, this is the bit I'm trying to work out regarding the Tories. How much of it is authentic and how much of it isn't. Sorry, I just need to turn this phone off because I keep turning it off and it doesn't do what it should do. So I'll just turn it off completely. Yeah. No, they don't deserve to be in the council, Sarah. These people don't deserve to represent us, black, white, Muslim, Christian, whatever. They're involved in dodginess. Is there anyone else who believes otherwise? Okay, so what I've done is the sequence of correspondence that was exchanged. I spent a bit of time last night. It's actually quite. a detailed analysis of the exchanges, and I think it's worthwhile me playing it. I recorded it myself. It's COVID world, so I'm afraid it's a video recorder I just set up on a whiteboard I normally spend using to play hangman with my daughter, is what I usually spend using this whiteboard for. But I used it for something else. I'll play it. It is long, but it's worthwhile, I think, because we are not stupid. We should not be treated as fools, and I think it's important for me to take this opportunity to go through the sequence of how we've got here and what happens next. Whilst this is playing, I'm actually going to be sat next to the computer so I can respond to any comments or any questions that people have on Facebook whilst this is playing. I can respond to it as well. So here we go. Hi, welcome to the other part of my living room. I tend to do my broadcasts from that corner. This thing here, it's been a few years since I've used it for anything serious. It's usually used for hangman with the little one. So let's see if it's of any use for what I'm trying to get across. I think something visual will help, because it's been an interesting week and there's a series of events that took place that I think having some form of visual representation whilst I'm talking will be of use. So what's happened? Brian Hoban came on last week, put a plea out, and after the bank holiday on Tuesday, number one, the Conservatives. All four Conservative councillors, open letter out to Sean Fielding, but they put the letter out on the internet so all of us could see it. And essentially they're saying the council is not capable or does not have the skill set or cannot be trusted, whatever, but send it to the Home Office. They want the government to intervene in Oldham around the child sex exploitation and the corruption and dodginess that I've been revealing for the last 12 months or so, including the cover-up of Rod Blythe and the anxieties amongst many of us of an organised paedophile ring at the highest level of the council, or the town even, so that's what the Conservatives stuck their neck out, and that's what happened. Within 24 hours, Howard Sykes had issued a statement on behalf of the Lib Dems. He put this on Twitter and he put this on his own webpage, and it's still there and you can read it. And Howard Sykes tries to defend the Lib Dems against Rod Blythe, who was one of their councillors, 25-year councillor. And we'll get to what Howard talks about later. And then following these two statements, first from the Conservatives and then from the Lib Dems, Captain Underpants gets involved, and Sean Fielding issues a response to the Conservatives, bypasses the Lib Dems, although there's some similarities in what he says and what the Lib Dems have said. But it bypasses the Lib Dems and goes back to the Conservatives with a rebuttal, with a response and a rebuttal, which I'm sure the Conservatives should have expected. But to make sense of all of this and where this leaves us, I think it's best to start with what Sean Fielding said and work our way backwards. It should make more sense doing it this way. So, Sean Fielding, leader of the council, leader of the Labour Party in Oldham, says to the Conservatives, no, we're not referring to the Home Office. Essentially, that's what his position is, which is to be expected. But he breaks it down, and I think it's useful for us to look at what he's specifically claiming. One, he says we're not giving it to the Home Office because the CSE investigation He claims it's independent. He's still claiming it's independent. He's claiming it's independent even though the terms of reference were set by the council. The council identified who was going to lead the investigation. Sean Fielding's girlfriend's employer, Andy Burnham. Sean Fielding's mate and Labour Party colleague, Andy Burnham. And Andy Burnham's team took the terms of reference given to them by the council, by Sean Fielding, what you can investigate, when you can investigate, who you can investigate, how you can investigate them, and passed that over to Andy Burnham's team. And Andy Burnham's team have a steering group, and on that steering group sit a number of Oldham Council, senior Oldham Council employees. So, if that is what independent means, it's a different meaning to what I know it to mean. But that's Sean Fielding's position, first of all. It's independent. His second position as to why it can't go to the Home Office and the council should be able to carry on doing what they're doing. Bear in mind, this is his second or third attempt at an investigation. First of all, it was barefaced lies. There was no need. Secondly, he found someone and they ran away. And then they ended up with Andy Burnham's team, who've been at it for 6 months to 7 months, and there's not been a single update or anything along those lines. But his second reason, it would be wrong to preempt. And he's also claiming, as part of this, is that there are people trying to scupper his investigation. And I'm pretty sure I know, and most of the town knows, who he means by people who are trying to scupper the investigation. In terms of preempt, it'd be wrong to preempt. He's still claiming it'd be wrong to preempt, even though it's already in the public domain that this investigation is already in a mess. And I'll quickly recap why the investigation is in a mess. One, the investigation team, Andy Burnham's guys, have already been exposed to have taken witness statements that then they've either altered. I'll let you decide whether they've doctored it, falsified it, or it's an honest mistake, but they've altered witness statements, and they've also withheld returning witness statements to key witnesses to be signed off months. Now, I am not an investigator, but I would turn up with a tape recorder, and I would also have someone taking notes verbatim, word for word, copying what's said. Burnham's team have done neither of those things. Would it be wrong to preempt an investigation that does not accurately record the testimonies of its witnesses? Secondly, in terms of wrong to preempt, the terms of reference refers to one specific victim and one specific case within it. So whilst it has 3 or 4 elements to it, there's one very specific case. That victim, 6 months, 7 months, she's been messed around, and she's still waiting to give her testimony. This is a victim who's been failed, and she's still waiting. As for scuppering the investigation, again, on record, I am happy to give testimony in public. I'll not take part in a farce of a hidden panel of Burnham's mates who don't have a tape recorder, who don't have a note taker, and who write whatever they want, irrespective of what I say. Now, I've offered my testimony in public, and if anyone's scuppering it, and I've spoken directly to victims and their families who have received letters from the council hours after Sean Fielding was on the front page of the newspapers as a consequence of an article written by his mate Charlotte Green, where he essentially calls victims and their families sickening for making up allegations. Now, they've changed the headline 3 times or 4 times since to try and make it sound as though he meant something else. But that first headline that went out described them as sickening and making up their allegations. And they get a piece of paper from the council at more or less the same time. You tell me who's scuppering. But that's Fielding's second reason. His third reason is he references a pre-agreement that the various leaders of the council and the chief executive, Dr. Caroline Wilkins, have an agreement that this investigation will run its course, and after that, if it comes up short, they'll meet amongst themselves and decide what to do next. Nothing in there about you, me, or anyone else in this town. They have a pre-agreement. And a slap, he specifically names the Conservative leader in Oldham, Hudson. And what he says is Hudson knew about this. Hudson is a partner in this. Why are you now getting in touch with me when the Tories have been on board all this time? So that's what he's saying about the child sex exploitation inquiry, Burnham's farcical inquiry. He said no to the Home Office, which the Conservatives should have expected. And we'll get to the Conservatives later. But that's what Fielding first says. Bear with me whilst I clean this board up, and we'll go to what he next talks about. He next goes on to talk indirectly about Rod Blythe. So Sean Fielding, leader of Oldham Council, after I've released it in the public domain, is now having to finally admit that the council knew about this stuff and kept it from us. But it does this in the most shameful of ways. In his letter to the Conservatives, the first thing noticeable, Sean Fielding refuses to name him. Sean Fielding then refuses. He refuses to state the actual crimes. This is something that's been followed through by his friend Charlotte Green in the newspapers, where they make reference to indecent images. Let's be clear. Rod Blythe was not convicted for sending some woman a dick pic, because that's what an indecent image would be. Rod Blythe was convicted after he was caught in a nationwide paedophile ring. Category A, Category B, Category C images on his computer of child abuse. Why is the leader of the council refusing to clarify with the people of the town in a letter he brazenly puts out on Facebook? Why is he refusing to say what the actual crimes were? He then distances the council. It's important because, again, this is something that is doubled down on in the newspaper reports. He distances the council and he says that this guy had resigned before his conviction. He'd resigned before his conviction. I'd like to think he'd resigned before his conviction. When he'd been caught red-handed. No, Sean. Why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep taking the people of our town to be stupid? He may have resigned before his conviction, but when he was caught, when he was committing his crimes, category A, B and C of child abuse, Sean, your councillor colleague was a councillor. He was an employee of Oldham Council. It doesn't matter that when he was convicted he'd resigned. By that time he'd resigned. What matters is what he was when he was actually committing the crimes. He was still a councillor. And of course that silly woman Charlotte Green is repeating all of this, hoping that the people who read that paper fall for this nonsense. No, Sean, he was a councillor at the time of committing the crime. And you admit this indirectly because you acknowledge that you were told, and the council was told, and that the appropriate safeguarding checks were taken. You acknowledge that the appropriate safeguarding checks were taken. And if the appropriate safeguarding checks were taken, pause, a councillor gets caught for speeding. Do you think there'll be appropriate safeguarding checks? A councillor gets caught for not paying his council tax. A councillor gets caught for being in a fight. A councillor gets caught for a whole host of offences, maybe not having a TV licence, I don't know. But do you think when the police notified the council that the council would take safeguarding checks? No. The safeguarding checks were taken because the council were told of why Rod Blythe was arrested. So by doing this, by admitting this, he's thrown a lot of people under the bus, as Sean Fielding. I don't think he's done it intentionally. I don't think he has the intellect to do it intentionally. Let me draw you a diagram of what an appropriate safeguarding check would look like. And now I've cross-referenced this. I still have senior civil servant friends and a whole host of other friends in local government who work at senior strategic levels, and I've spoken to them over the last few days, and they've all said pretty much the same. If the police had arrested a councillor for sex offences against children, doesn't matter if they convicted him yet, but they'd arrested him, the police would go to the employer and they'd have the conversation here with the council. And with the council specifically, the conversation would take place with the chief executive and the solicitor probably as well. Or she'd speak to the solicitor. And the chief executive, Dr. Carolyn Wilkins, and the solicitor, Paul Entwistle. Now, whatever is wrong in this town, and whatever has been going on in this town, these two are neck deep in it. Because it's not possible without the leaders of the council's involvement, without these senior officers' involvement. Now, these two, the police go here to the council. That's who. These two would go to the leader of the council. And at that time, the leader of the council was the Hollingwood councillor called Jean Stretton. Jean Stretton is a grandmother. Sean Fielding, in his admission of safeguarding checks, has pretty much confirmed this took place. They knew, she knew. I challenged Jean Stretton to come out and deny that she did not know or she was not told. I challenged these two. They won't, because Sean Fielding's admission means that these know. Now, this is not where it stops. As part of the appropriate safeguarding checks, Jean Stretton, Dr. Carolyn Wilkins, Paul Entwistle, between them, they would have gone to Howard Sykes. Howard Sykes is the leader of the Lib Dems. And Howard Sykes would have gone to others in the Lib Dems. This is separate. This dialogue and this conversation would have took place separate to anything these guys did in terms of checks. Was he a governor on a school? Did he volunteer at the swimming baths? Did he take kids away with a church group? 25-year a councillor, remember? I'd expect all of these other things to have took place. We'll find out, we'll ask, we'll get the question as to what these appropriate safeguarding checks were, and no doubt they'll try and avoid answering these questions, but we'll see where we end up. But Sean Fielding, in his admission of appropriate safeguarding checks, this would have took place. Which brings me to Howard Sykes and his statement. Howard. How bad is it going to get for you, Howard? Your association with Cyril Smith is self-declared. And now this. You're the party leader, and this. And you kept it hidden? Or you didn't know? What is it, Howard? Because Sean Fielding's thrown you under the bus by appropriate safeguarding checks, and then your own press release, which is the second document that came out last week, is bizarre. Starts with and I just want to get this right. I've written it down, so I want to get this right. The 7th of September 2017, following his arrest, Rod Blythe was suspended. This is an admission. It's an admission that Rod Blythe did what he did whilst he was a councillor. No one now cares that he wasn't a councillor by the time he got convicted. At the time of his arrest, he was a councillor. And whatever crimes he committed, he did so whilst he was a councillor. It's an admission. And then Howard embarks on an ill-thought Now Howard's bright. Everyone tells me Howard's one of the brightest councillors. He's one of the most shrewd politicians in the council chamber. So he knew what he was doing. And this is what he does. And I need to clear this because I need some space to show you what he does. Remember, it's Howard Sykes giving a statement. It goes on his webpage. It's on his Twitter feed. Yeah, so he's giving the statement as the leader of the Lib Dems. He just doesn't talk about himself and what he knew and what he didn't know. He talks about the Lib Dem group. And he says, Greater Manchester Police did not tell the Lib Dem group. Greater Manchester Police did not tell the Lib Dem group about Rod Blythe. So your mate, who's a councillor for 25 years, suddenly resigns after being arrested, and you're waiting for Greater Manchester Police to tell you what he did. As if none of you went and spoke to Rod Blythe yourself. Some more holes. Howard Sykes, the person, first person, Howard Sykes, fails in his press release to state whether Greater Manchester Police told him. Howard Sykes also failed to say whether Jean Stretton, Carolyn Wilkins, Paul Entwistle or someone else from the council told him. And Howard Sykes also conveniently omits whether he had any interactions with Rod Blythe who might have told him, or whether someone else from the Lib Dems told him. What Howard Sykes omits is what Howard Sykes knew or didn't know. He takes us for fools. Howard Sykes I'd be staggered if Howard Sykes didn't know. And I'd be staggered if Howard Sykes didn't know because of what else I know. And for now I'll keep that to myself, Howard. But I know what else went on in the lead up to his conviction. And your role and the role of other senior Lib Dems in that. You didn't know, did you, Howard? No, you've not said that, have you? You've said the Lib Dem group hadn't been told by them. You've not even said whether the Lib Dem group had been told by the council. Do you see how clever this is? By saying that and just that. These are politicians we're dealing with, people. This is what politicians do. They lie and they deceive and they connive and... But this isn't on council tax or some planning regulation. This is on child abuse. This is our kids being groomed, gang raped, God knows what else, by one of them. And of course, Howard Sykes does the same as what Sean Fielding does. He fails to say what the actual convictions were for. I think he uses the same words, indecent images. Indecent images. Go and look up Category A, child abuse images. Yeah, go and do that. Howard Sykes is up for re-election in May. I will go and knock on every door in Shaw with any candidate who comes forward and stands on an anti-paedophile platform. As a pledge from me, I will knock on every door with you, because I know that whoever stands against Howard Sykes in Shaw on an anti-paedophile platform will take him out. And whoever stands against any other Lib Dem on an anti-paedophile platform will take out every other Lib Dem. Because it's shameful. And all the others are shameful because all the others have remained silent. And my inbox, because where do you think I got this information from? My inbox is full of Lib Dems, past, present, who have told me all of this. Go and have a look on my Freedom of Information request that Paul Entwistle is still refusing. I submitted an FOI request in December last year regarding Rod Blythe. So if I knew in December last year, are you telling me all these people didn't know? Not having it. They take us for fools. And on that note, taking us for fools, I come to the Conservatives. I won't put Hudson's name now, because I don't think this has come from Hudson. He's very pro-Labour, as a former Labour man himself. So I don't think the letter came from Hudson. I don't even think it came from some of the other Tories. I think it really came from the younger ones who have been pushing and pushing and pushing. And rightly so. I think they've done it for the right reasons. But I also think they're young. And with youth, there's inexperience. The Conservatives will have known that their request to a Labour Party leader would have been dismissed out of hand. They would have known that. That's politics. If one party comes up with something, the other party says no. So we knew that was going to happen. So why did you do that? At its most basic level and worst level, and if I think the worst of them, I think they were just playing politics with the people of our town. Hudson is up for re-election in May. The people of Saddleworth will not tolerate a paedophile protector. There's no cartels in Saddleworth. There's no dodgy community organisations that get backhanders with grants and community buildings. Maybe the odd dodgy developer, but not enough in terms of votes like that. Hudson is up for re-election in May. If I was to think the worst, this was just a PR stunt. Because Hudson would have known that their request to take it to the Home Office would have been dismissed out of hand. Hudson would have known. Now, how genuine are these guys? And I'm not a Conservative, so I'm sceptical. Like many people in this town where the Conservatives don't really have traction, I'm sceptical. But I'm willing to be convinced and I'm willing to believe the best in these people if they follow through on this. And following through on this is the clarity I wanted people to be left with. One, I want to clear this. These are the options they have. The full council meeting next week. The first option they have, if they're genuine in what they've done, is to stand up and speak out at the full council meeting and force a vote, force a motion, pass it to the Home Office, call for a government inquiry. Hudson, the other council, the Conservative council, stand up and force a vote. It doesn't matter if they lose. What you'll then know is exactly which of the councillors are in support of hiding paedophiles and which of them are on the side of the people of this town and want an independent government inquiry. We'll know. We'll know which and every one of the Labour councillors, the Lib Dem, the Tories, we'll know where each of them stand as individuals. Easy thing to do on Tuesday for them. Next thing they should do, as an option, is to write directly to Andy Burnham. Greater Manchester Mayor, we have no confidence in your inquiry. You have failed us on the terms of reference. Your investigators have failed to take testimony accurately. Your investigators are messing witnesses around. It's a joke. We pull out. We're not supportive of it. The Tories can write to Burnham. The Tories can also write to Greater Manchester Police, the guy at the top, Hopkins. Because in their letter, the Tories specifically reference corruption. The stuff I've been exposing for the last year. Now, I'm not hiding. I've written to the police. I've written to Hopkins myself. I know other friends of mine have written to Hopkins themselves. We have stuck our neck out and we are saying there is systematic corruption in our town led by the Labour Party and Labour Party politicians in partnership with the Asian cartels. Our lives are at risk because of what we've done. The Tories should write to Hopkins and demand an investigation. I keep revisiting this and I keep restating this because it's the most obvious example for me. How can Jim McMahon and Arood Shah be involved in the sale of Glodic baths weeks before an election to associates of Arood Shah who stood in that election? And then it was sold at a discount price. How can that happen in a Western democracy, where a public asset is sold to an influential organisation days before an election? And the councillor up for re-election has declared interests with that organisation. And that's the most obvious one. So the Tories can write to Hopkins. They can write to Burnham. They can stand up next week at the full council meeting. But most of all, the Tories can write to the Tories and the government. It's a Conservative government. Write to the Home Office, Hudson. On behalf of the people of Oldham and Saddleworth, write to the Home Office and say, we are deeply concerned about the breakdown of democracy in the town of Oldham. And we request an immediate and urgent investigation, because I know what's going on here is going on in other towns with the Asian cartels and the Labour Party and politicians like Jim McMahon and Debbie Abrahams work hand in glove with the Asian community. So that's what we're up to. The Tories have an opportunity. And I think we judge them on their actions. Okay, back to the conversations. Okay, that was me last night. My neighbours probably heard me ranting and wondered what I was doing, but that's in front of a little whiteboard blue that I spend most of my time using for hangman rather than things as serious as this. So I'm going to go through a couple of questions I've seen come up. First one. So when it comes up Facebook user on my thing, it's because you don't follow the page or you don't like the page or your settings are wrong. So that's why it comes up Facebook user. So I don't know who this is. So you might want to go and maybe follow the page. It doesn't matter if Burnham and GMP don't do it, does it? The Tories have come out and said they stand against it. The Tories knew that Sean Fielding would say no. So now the Tories have got to act. So they've got to write to Burnham, they've got to write to Hopkins, and Tracy Pillar, Hopkins is corrupt. I've read the documents that are out there. Again, it doesn't matter. These are positions that have value in our democracy. And the Conservatives in Oldham have got to write to Hopkins in his position as the most senior police officer in Greater Manchester, and they've got to write to Burnham, whose team is heading up the inquiry. At the very least, write to Burnham and say, hey up mate, do you know what a tape recorder is? Maybe a note taker when these witnesses come in. And why is it that a young girl who was raped and raped and raped and failed and failed and failed is still waiting 6 months, 7 months later to give her testimony? Why have you stood Kaiser Raymond up after doctoring his witness statement first time round, not turned up the next time when you'd arranged to meet him? It goes on. The list goes on of what these people have done. So no, it doesn't matter that what Hopkins or Burnham do. But in the first instance, full council meeting next week, Hudson needs to stand up, and point at them and say, you covered it up. We will not stand for it. And we want to vote. Yes, Paul. I know Priti Patel and her team know about this. I know the highest level in the Labour Party know about what's going on in our town. There's memos being passed around about me. It's fine. Send all the memos you want. I'll share something later. That's in my scale of things to worry about, rather than a memo in red ink from Keir Starmer or who the new General Secretary of the Labour Party is. I don't care. I don't care what any of you are. I don't care. This is my town. These are my people. These are my kids. No, we've had enough. You know what I've heard, Gary? And this is the bit that worried me. I heard that the Conservative government already knew about what was going on in Oldham and they were waiting for the right time. So the right time had nothing to do with us. The right time had everything to do with the distraction or making most political gain out of it. But the Tories have an option. The Tories in Oldham have an option. It'd be wrong of me to be dismissive of them so quickly. But they would have known. Hudson is a veteran politician. He would have known that Sean Fielding would have said no. And now Sean Fielding has said no. What we have is, what do you do next? Was it a bluff? Was it just a ploy to get more votes? Or are they genuine? Are they serious? Anita, if you've seen Brian Hobin's post And I am supportive of Brian's post. Have you seen Brian's post? He's urging people to write to Priti Patel directly, and he's written himself directly to Priti Patel. So, absolutely. Yeah, it'll take each of you 2 minutes to do. But really, it shouldn't work like that. We elect politicians to do what is in the interest of the people of the town. So the Tories should do it. And as for the other Lib Dems, wow. So, this is then what happened after that letter, and we've just gone over an hour, and I won't keep you too much longer, but I think it's relevant. Sean Fielding wrote a letter to an email to every Labour Party member. Very quickly. First of all, he's going with the line that we're aiming to create a fabricated picture of corruption built on accusations without evidence. Sorry. Accusations without evidence. While the campaign is still largely restricted to people, often not based in Oldham. Often not based in Oldham. Who regularly share far-right messages. Hate the Labour Party. Again, that regularly sharing far-right messages and hating the Labour Party. Who wouldn't think twice about using child sexual exploitation for political gain, I think is what the rest of that sentence says. Disgraceful. Disgraceful, man. Here's the lie. Here's the first lie. I just need to zoom out. There you go. When the accusations of historic misconduct in relation to CSE first emerged, we asked the Greater Manchester Combined Authority to commission an independent review. No, you didn't. No, you didn't, Sean Fielding. You got up and screamed barefaced lies. Then you had Dr. Mark Peel come in, and then he ran away, and God knows what else happened. I remember at some point you stuck your underwear on Twitter with your girlfriend holding them up. What you didn't do. There's no way you did what you claimed you did. And I presume I'm this ringleader, the ringleader of a campaign. I've never been a ringleader before, but ringleader of the campaign has recently accused the council of covering up the conviction of former Liberal Democrat councillor. Sean, I've not accused the council. I've proven the council did it. What do you think has just gone on, you numpty? You did cover it up because you didn't tell us. As with so much he shares, this is categorically untrue. What have I shared that is categorically untrue? Does Arood Shah have a dodgy ownership that she yo-yoed on in terms of Gelato's Ice Lounge? Did the council secretly fund mosques? Is the Labour Party reliant on a bloc Asian postal vote? The dodgy dealings of Riaz Ahmed, Dr. Chauhan, Shahid Mushtaq, Abdul Jabbar hanging out with a convicted sex offender, your girlfriend Sean landing us all for job with Andy Burnham, the sale of Glodic baths, the sale of the Chadderton baths, and a whole host of other sales. What is categorically untrue? There you go. The council was also informed and conducted the appropriate safeguarding checks. As a result, admission he knew. And he can't help himself, possessing indecent images of children. At least he's added the of children bit to his internal memo to his Labour Party mates. And the nonsense they're carrying on with. It would be inappropriate to issue a proactive public statement about a former councillor or employee convicted of something as a private citizen. Rod Blythe, was convicted not as a private citizen when he committed his crimes. When Rod Blythe committed his crimes, he was a serving Oldham councillor, and no amount of weasel words. We are not stupid, Oldham Council. We are not stupid, Sean Fielding, Howard Sykes. It's time the people in the Civic Centre started taking the people of our town seriously. We are no more stupid than we are racist. Good evening.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.